Excellent. 5 minutes to fly high. I'm flying high this morning.
You only have 2 now.
I know. I thank you for the picture. Just really quick thank you to a couple of people. I don't need to. A couple of people have done amazing work in the last month. Sheena and her plant crew. Leela's here. I'm here. Any other plant people here? Where are our plant people? Did an incredible job once again for putting the plants together and thousands of dollars worth of plants. So thank you, Tina and Leela. This year we did do some things for us to eat, some vegetables and things, herbs and things like that. So hopefully that was appreciated too. But thank you. The second to Mark and Mark's crew. I know Mark has a crew that's doing beginner education around all over the place at Sugartown, at Cheslin, at Bondsville, and soon to be here. You know, Mark and his crew. I don't know if any of your crew's here today.
Janet's here.
Janet's here.
You're on the crew. Yeah.
Again, Mark, thank you.
Yeah.
Big round of applause to Mark and his crew for doing. Russ is in the back. Russ is doing our apprentice course this year. So if you signed up for the apprentice program, Russ has paired you with a teacher, hopefully, and hopefully that's working. And thank Russ for taking that on. That's not my strength. I don't know what it is, but administration of anything is not my strength. So thank you, Russ. And of course, Damon and Mark and all the people that do the community engagement. I know those requests continue to pile in, and they are always looking for help in order to deliver that. So again, I know I'm missing some people. April, right? April has volunteered to help us with not April.
No, I'm just shocked that this makes the cut. Yes.
Yeah, no, it all makes the cut. If you're doing something, you make the cut here, believe me. So April's so we're doing a website refresh on the whole website, and we've hired a third party a company that actually knows what they're doing with website to help us with that. But we needed someone internally to sort of take that on, since once they make the changes, we need to maintain them. And April and her husband I think it's her husband, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, whoever this guy is that you bring.
Backing up, George.
It's going to help us maintain that. So, and then the Queen team's out there making queens, and the grant program reviewed grants, and Patrick brought food. I mean,
Newsletter
to the newsletter, Damon to Damon. You get a shirt. So you get the flavor of what's going on. If you're not part of what's going on,
the newsletter came out today, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
next, if I forgot anyone, I apologize. But thank you all for your efforts to run this program. And we highlighted some of the people on that lead. So moving on, I get my 10 minutes. I'm going to use it all on keeping bees alive. Okay, as you've heard, this is May. What is May? May is honey month, basically, right? So the month of May is when all the trees bloom, basically. So between when the trees start, the cherry trees, the apple trees go into right now we have the black locust trees, and then we'll have the black gum trees, and then we'll have linden trees, and then we'll have sourwood trees. So pretty much from the end of April to the second week of June is when the trees are blooming. And most of the honey that we make in this area is from tree blooms and not flower on the ground, right? Everyone and people don't know that. When you talk to someone about your beekeeping, most of the honey is made by trees, not by wildflowers. So when we're knocking down a tree, when you knock down a tree, right? If a tree's blooming, that's the equivalent of 2 acres of flowers. So one tree is equal to 2 acres of clover. So plant trees. And don't let people knock down trees. Trees are important, right? So we got to keep our trees going, and most of the honey comes from trees. If you look at hive weights, I know Keith's not here because Keith always disagrees with me, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I'd say it if he was here because we've had this discussion. If you look at hive weights generally go up only in May and early June. That's the only time where the amount of nectar coming in exceeds the amount of nectar being used by that hive, right? So the weight gain of a hive is really only happening basically from the end of April through the beginning of June. This is when they're putting on all their weight. Now, how much do the bees put on? The bees will put on as much honey as you give them space to put on, right? So bees will fill the cavity that you give them. Now, with that said, you can't expect a colony this big to fill a cavity that big. It's not going to work. But generally, if you super this time of year, they will fill it, right? So if you want to make, not only do this if you want honey, extra honey, right? Bees are okay with overwintering on between, I'm going to say it, and I know people aren't going to agree, about 40 pounds of honey in this area. You can get an average size colony through the winter on 40 pounds of honey, right? Which is basically one medium super, right? Or a deep and a medium. It's plenty of honey to get them through the winter. If you only want 5 pounds of honey for yourself, don't put 3 supers on your hive, because why? Honestly, the bees don't need it. What?
They'll fill it.
They'll fill it.
Yeah.
If your colony's strong, they'll fill it, but don't ask them to do all that work if you're not going to use it, because it's going to be too much. In my opinion, it's too much space for the winter. So ask yourself, how much honey do I want? And now's the time to super it, right? Now's the time to make your hive bigger. Now, if you're a new beekeeper this year and you've just started beekeeping, don't expect to get much honey, right? This year, because A, you have a new colony, B, you're probably asking the bees to draw out all the wax in the hive, and there's just not going to be a lot left. There may be a frame or two for you, but there's not going to be a lot. But this is honey month.
Another point on that, if you've gotten a package or you've gotten a new nuke and you're feeding, and you then take a frame of honey, it's not honey, it's sugar water.
The other thing you got to realize is that the bees will create a honey dome in your hive. So at some point they're going to create this honey dome, which is it's brood, it's pollen, it's brood, nectar, pollen, and then this cap of honey. And somewhere in your hive they're going to create this cap of honey, and they're not going to work above it, right? So if you want to make a bunch of honey, you've got to always know where that honey dome is and put extra supers on below that honey dome. Because if you put it on above the honey dome, they're just going to ignore it. They're not going to work above it for the most part. Again, if you want bees to work another box that you put on your hive, the best way, now this isn't always, like if you put an empty box in a hive that has a bunch of plastic foundation in it, they're likely going to ignore it for the most part. Because why, right? Like, okay, I know, you know what you want them. You want them to come up. You want them to draw a comb. You want them to fill it with honey. Well, it's a box of plastic for them. They're just going to say, and generally ignore it. So if you can move brood up from the lower to the upper part of the hive, they will always work a box if there's brood in it. Now, granted, if your brood is deep and you have a medium, you may not be able to bring a deep frame up into the medium frame, right? If you could bring a frame if you have a box of empty frames, so you could bring drawn comb up, at least a frame of comb that has the wax on it, has the honey in it, they will work it more. If you just put a blank box on a hive with nothing else in there, they may ignore it. So just remember that. Like if you're like, I'm putting on supers and they're not working it, they're the two things I think of right away. One is, did I put it above the honey dome? Question one. Question two, is it a box full of plastic? And they say, what the heck are you, I'm not interested in a box full of plastic. And question number three is, you don't have enough bees, right? You may not have enough bees, right? Because if you have 4 frames of bees and 3 boxes of supers on your hive, we have some hardworking bees in Chester County, but that's a little bit much. So anyway, so it's honey month. So collect your honey now. You can collect honey all year round. It's just a matter of this is the best time to do it. What are the bees? So there's 4 things that when you go into your hive, right? You've heard this before: bees, brood, food, disease. Bees, brood, food, disease. Every time you go into a hive, in my mind, when you close up that hive, you should have understanding of those 4 things. What's going on in those 4 things? And as a beekeeper, is there anything that you need to do to optimize that hive to be productive and to survive? Because ultimately, they're the things you want your hives to do. You want your hives to be productive, and you want your hives to survive. So what are bees doing right now? Swarming. So bees generally want to swarm. The bigger your colony is, the more likely it is to swarm. The bigger it is coming out of winter, the more likely it is to swarm. And this is what bees generally do. It is a lot of work to prevent swarming, honestly. And can you 100% prevent swarming? No, but you can decrease your swarming if you're into it. But prevention of swarming this time of year, and swarming is generally when the peak nectar flow is on. So swarming basically goes from middle to end of April through the first week of June. Once the summer, and definitely by the time the summer solstice hits, June 21st, they're generally done swarming. I generally say in this area, now every year is different, usually the first week of June. If you can get your bees through the first week of June without swarming, they're unlikely to swarm. So bees want to swarm. How do you know if your hive swarmed? It's queenless. So if you have marked queen, you go in there, there's no queen, right? The other clue is that you have more brood than bees. So you go into your hive, you have all this brood, and your bee population doesn't cover all the frames of brood. More than likely, it's swarm. What people don't realize is that, anyway, they don't realize a lot, and I don't realize a lot either. But hives that swarm are big, and sometimes if they don't throw off after swarms, you still have a lot of bees in the hive. But there's no queen, and there's no young brood, right? So when you look at your brood, it's all, you don't see any eggs, you don't see any young larvae, you just basically see cat brood and that hive swarmed, right? So that's what bees want to do this time of year. They want to swarm. Most hives that are overwintered, that aren't managed weekly, in my mind, will swarm. And that's not a bad thing, right? Most hives that swarm will requeen themselves in enough time and will be okay. But you've just thrown off a swarm that needs to land somewhere, and you have a 15% chance of that hive not requeening itself. So at some point you may have an issue. Not today, but at some point.
So before a swarm goes out, the queen reduces in size, so she can fly.
The queen of the size, the queen is
I'm
lighter.
not sure I could look at a queen and tell this queen is now getting prepared to swarm. Or could I tell? I'm not sure I could tell the difference between that and a virgin queen.
You wouldn't be checking the queen, you'd be checking the swarm
Now,
cells,
when you
right?
so sure, one of the signs that is swarm cells. So you have swarm cups that are on the bottom. All hives make swarm cups. That's normal. That doesn't mean they're going to swarm. Then you have swarm cups that are charged, right? So you have cups that have an egg or a larvae in it and aren't capped, but that's definitely a sign that the hive's looking to take off. And then you have swarm cells that are capped. Once they're capped, the queen is either gone or going to be gone at that point. And there's different strategies of what to do based on what you find, right? So if you see cups do nothing, if you see swarm cells that aren't capped, you can cut them out. If you see swarm cells that are capped, you can basically assume that hive's left or is going to leave. With that said, I've done this. Not that I've done this enough. I've done this too much. I personally think when you look at a queen, a mated queen that's getting ready to leave, she gets a little flighty. Like the way she moves on the comb, the way she flaps her wings. When you try to get her, she's not quite the size of a virgin, but she starts to act like a virgin again because she's losing weight and getting prepared to take off. So
It seems like it'd be hard to tell the difference.
when I'm not blind because you're looking at the whole hive, you say, oh, okay, I see cap swells. This is a queen there. But anyway, the bees this time of year want to swarm. So if you're not in your hive weekly, you're likely to end up having your hive swarm, honestly. Again, it's not the end of the world. Brood. A hive should always have, any time of the year except for winter, your hive should always have the 3 stages of brood in them. You should always see egg, you should always see larvae, you should always see cat brood, right? This time of year, you're very likely to go into your hive and not see eggs and not see larvae. Why? It's swarmed, right? The queen stops laying, the queen takes off. So you go into your hive and you don't see the queen, you don't see eggs, you don't see larvae. You may not even see the swarm cells because the swarm cells may have already emerged and they've taken down the swarm cell pretty quickly. So you may not even see evidence that the hive is swarmed. But more than likely, if you don't have eggs and larvae this time of year, your hive has swarmed.
Or it has beetles like that.
There's other reasons, but more than likely your hive has swarmed. Will your hive requeen itself? Probably, yes. You need patience though, okay? This is the most common time of year, well, going into it, where people say, my hive is queenless, I need a queen. And Charlie and the queen team will sell you a queen that will go into that hive and it will get killed because your hive has a queen in it. Now, I generally say, now this takes a lot of patience and I'm not a patient person. You should wait. So if you go into your hive today, you go in and you say, I have cat brood, no eggs, no larvae. It looks like it's swarmed. I don't see a virgin. What do I do? I generally let all the cat brood emerge and then wait a week and then go in and inspect. At that point, you should see evidence of a laying queen again. Now that's hard to know when, but generally the the brood should be all hatched out plus 1 week before you truly think you're queenless. So if you go into your hive and you see a little bit of scattered cap brood and you're queenless, don't get a queen. Go back in a week, recheck it, and if in that week after all that brood has emerged, you're still queenless, you still see no evidence of queen, then you may be looking around for a queen. Okay, just be patient. With swarming. Yes, Paul.
One hint I found is that, I use the green drum cone.
Mhm.
If you have a frame of that in there, when the new queen comes, sometimes she preferentially lays eggs there first.
Mhm.
So it's a good thing to have in hive anyway. It's a good place to.
And some people talk about leaving if you go into a queenless hive, you'll see that the bees will leave that area where the brood nest is open. They'll polish the cells, they'll leave it open. And that's always a good sign that they expect a queen to come, or they're prepping an area for a queen to come in and lay. If you go into a hive and all your frames in your brood nest are backfilled with nectar, that's more of a concerning sign that you may be queenless. So if you see that nice open space in the brood frames where 2 or 3 frames have that cleared cells where you don't see the eggs and larvae, but they may lay, that's a good sign. Be patient. You know what I mean? Generally, you're not going to turn into a laying worker until about 3 weeks after your brood nest. So you have a little bit of time to wait before you throw in a queen to that situation. So brood, a lot of hives are queenless. The most common reason why you're queenless now is because you are swarm. No, go back. I'm not done. I got my time. I'm filling time with highly important information right now. You generally this time of month, you don't need to worry about food, right? For the most part, there's plenty of pollen, plenty of nectar coming into your hive. The only time where you have to worry about food, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is if you start to make splits, right? If you start to make splits and you start to split up your colony into smaller colonies, don't forget that colony that when you make a split always needs 2 frames of food. Otherwise, it's going to run out of food. And the last thing that is disease. Bees, brood, food, disease. Generally, the bees look pretty healthy right now for the most part. I feel like the brood looks well, the bees look good, everything looks good. But now is when your mite levels start to creep up a little bit potentially. Especially if you got a nuke or a package from down south, and that package or nuke may have been earlier started in the season. It doesn't hurt to start checking your mite levels in May. So you really, again, we'll probably talk more about mites at another meeting, but in the ideal world, I will start looking at my hives in May with your mite levels, and if you're not doing mite levels on your hive, you probably should be, honestly. If you're a backyard beekeeper and you have 1 apiary in your backyard and you have fewer than 5 hives, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be doing mite levels, honestly, on your hive. And we can get into that later, but if you don't have a mite checker, you should get a mite checker. If you don't know how to do a mite level, you should learn. May is when you start checking your mites. Next. So what am I doing in May, besides trying to survive? It's a tough. This is the busiest month of the year for beekeeping, right? Because there's a lot going on. You're trying to get supers on. You're trying to prevent your hives from swarming. You're trying to make splits. I really think weekly inspections. Now, there's ways to beekeep where you don't need weekly inspections for sure. There's more hands-off methods generally, but if you want to sort of prevent swarming, I think weekly inspections are key right now until early June. We talked about adding honey supers, and we talked about swarm control, whether or not that's brood nest expansion, cut out or open swarm cells, or a split. And things to consider, I talked about checking your mite counts. I like making splits the end of May, the beginning of June. I think it's a good time to make splits. We'll go into that more later. And don't be afraid, even if you're a new beekeeper and you're not feeding sugar water, if your hives are small, don't be afraid to pull 2 frames of honey and extract. You know what I mean? Like this time of year, if you have 2 outside frames that are capped and they're honey, and you want to take a little bit for yourself, go ahead. Take a couple pounds. Your bees are going to recover. They're not going to starve this time of year. Enjoy some honey if you want. You don't have to have a full super of honey to take a couple frames out and extract them or get some honey out of it. Enjoy the honey. That's May. That's all I got.
All right.
I How did I do? Oh, good.
That's a question.
Oh, come on, I got 15 more minutes. I
George,
was
I have a
moving
question.
today.
So the growing season in terms of gardening, it seems like it's been delayed. Like I've put my garden in as early as March,
Mhm.
right? We couldn't do it in April. It was cold. Gardens are going in May. Is the beet season potentially going to be shifted to go slightly later? Like is
I think it's, I mean, the black locust trees are blue. I always say the black locust is the first week of May. It's the first week of May and you see the black locust in bloom. So I think overall, I think it started later this year a little bit, but I think it's caught up now and somebody knows growing degree days, right? I'm sure the growing degree days are
up to like the 30-year average.
are average at this point. So I think right now it all depends on how many days of rain we get, right? You know, I mean, all beekeepers honey producing beekeepers, right? Honey producing beekeepers groan when it rains the first week of May, right? Because, you know, black locust season is this is peak nectar flow right now, the first and second week of May. So when it's raining outside and the rain is just washing the nectar out of the trees and the bees are in the hives, we're just like, oh my goodness, I'm not gonna make the amount of honey I need to make this year. Tough luck. Sorry. The bees will be okay.
Tulip poplar fans now.
Tulip poplars bloom, it follows black locust. So is it bloom in your area? Tulip poplar?
so I was asking
Tulip poplar is the best honey out there. It really is. I have 1 yard in Delaware that makes tulip poplar honey most years. And the way you know you make tulip poplar honey, anyone know?
It's green.
It's not green. Sorry, it's red. So tulip poplar honey is a reddish color. So usually the George is disagreeing with the chairman. I should listen. But usually the spring honey is light. Tulip poplar honey has a reddish tint to it, and it never crystallizes. So if you extract tulip poplar honey and leave it on your shelf 3 years from now, it still won't crystallize.
So Ernie, you've got tulip poplar blooming now. I'm about 10, maybe 12 miles east of you, and our tulip poplars are not blooming yet. We're probably a week away.
I'm well protected down underneath the hill and.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You've got these micro environments that you might see it, and 10 miles away, you know, I haven't seen a drop of rain.
I have a lot of tulip poplar and it's blooming now, but there's a lot of bush honeysuckle and black locust. The bees like the bush honeysuckle and black locust.
Uh-huh.
They never touch the tulip poplar.
I only have 1 yard that I get it most years, and I don't know what it is, you know. But I
did
always
that too. It's what's growing in that local environment, and it's only some years sometimes.
yeah, that's what they say, and they say the bees only, you know, bees will forage as close to the hive as they need to, right? So if there's something that they like within a half a mile and the tulip poplar's a mile away, they're not going after. They're the most efficient foragers out there in the world. Yes, I get time waited. We're good.
The honey
This is
dome,
this is what I look forward to every month.
the honey dome you speak of, is
Yeah.
that in a frame where you have like a rainbow
Yeah.
of honey?
Yeah.
So you gotta keep that above the
Correct.
super.
Yeah.
But the frame, that it's not one frame, it's a lot of them. It's like 6 or 8 of those frames have this honey dome on this super, and you put another super on top of it. There's nothing going to go up there.
Okay.
So you have to George said earlier, you have to under super
Underneath where that
below
dome
the
is.
honey dome.
But it's on multiple frames. So if you look frame, and on the top of the frame, there's an inch of capped honey along all the top of the frames. They may not move above it.
Right.
So you want to bring the supers below that.
Tina?
It can be. Usually not in the brood box, but it can be. If your hive is small, they may decide that they're going to be okay in one brood box and not work above it. So you just have to.
Then do you undershoot on?
I sometimes will move brood up. Or try to move brood up higher in the hive, because if you move brood up higher in the hive, then they'll go up higher in the hive and work that box. So, or under super, or you have to experiment a little bit, you know.
You have a question?
So that, if I understand you right, it makes sense to put your super, say you're gonna put 2 supers on, you got 1 on now, put that second super underneath underneath.
You can it's talking about whether or not when you add a second super, do you over super or under super. I think you could do both. I mean, I think it's safer to under super, right? Because you know, the bees are going to more likely sort of work that box. Now, if that top box isn't capped, you probably can over super, but if you over super and 3 days later that box is still pretty light, then move it underneath. I generally under super. So if I'm adding another super to a hive that already has a super, I'm generally putting that super under the one that's already.
Yeah, I never thought, I always just put them on top. That makes sense what you're saying.
Again, you can put it on top and if it's filled, it's fine. They haven't decided that they have a top, the honey dome in
I
there.
usually try to, I don't take a whole super off and extract, I usually take a frame or two out
Sure.
at a time. And load in, some drawn.
And that's one way to break up the honey dome. It's like, okay, let's take a couple of the frames out, extract them and put them back in and then put some blanks on top. Yeah. So you may not be seeing it.
When you get your first box full, you have it underneath it?
Generally. Underneath. Again, if they haven't decided they have a top of the hive, it doesn't matter. But if they started to cap, and you put another one over a cap box, they may not go.
I already
up
have
there.
2 caps.
You can checkerboard it.
You can checkerboard too. Like you can take good point. You can take some of that capped off, move it up, put some blanks in there, put some blanks above. Yeah, that's another option that
You can stagger the boxes too.
You can stagger boxes, yeah. Just be, the point is if you put a super on and they're ignoring it, just be mindful that may be why they're ignoring it.
And checkerboarding, by the way, is really good if you have blank frames that need to be drawn out. Never put them all together. Put a blank, a new one in with an old one, new one, old one, new one, old one. That's the checkerboarding. And they will tend to draw out the comb on it because they're already up there.
When I do that, they just draw the previously drawn one double wide, and then I get a huge one and an empty one, a huge one.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you put it next to a cat one, they won't go wide. But if you put it out next to a uncapped one, then they're just going to take the uncapped one and build it wider.
That's pretty cool.
You get some massive honey frames that are like 3 inches thick. This is a heavy frame.
A lot easier to cut that capping off. That's that. Yeah.
What other questions? So no other questions? I think the best thing to do this time of year, like any time of year, is to plant plants, right? So if you're not planting plants, plant plants. If you're not sharing what you know with somebody else, share what you know with somebody else. This should be fun. Share your knowledge, plant plants, have fun. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, George. All right, so we'll talk a little bit. I was told I was going to talk about honey production today.
Her story, Historic Sugartown. We have 2 more slots, 3 afternoon slots, 2 shifts, 9:30 to 1 to 4 p.m. We need help. Desperately need help. A lot of people, I know, are concerned because, like, well, I'm busy. I get a lot of that. I'm busy. I completely understand. I got 5 kids. I'm busy. But what I can tell you is if you can slot 1 or 2 slots a year, or if you have a standing event that you go to, we'd appreciate any help we can get. Any type of commitment would be really helpful.
David, can I say one thing?
Yes.
As one of the women's bee group thing, I was talking to Mark about this one event that is coming up. It is like the timeline of women in America. It would be really great if some of us women beekeepers, I've actually signed up for the morning shift. It would be great if we could get the women's bee group, at least chair people, to go and work it, and any other female beekeepers that we haven't.
Maybe before my wedding.
Well, that's exactly what I said to Mark. It's the day before your wedding, so not you.
It's everything's in there.
People understand. People understand. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so there'll be some ladies for that event. It's possible. You sign up for a shift, please go on the website and look for volunteer guys. And then the Malvern perennial plant in Burr Park. This one's pretty easy. I did it last year. You set a table. It's only 2 hours long. It's a nice little event right in downtown Malvern. I did it last year. I just can't do it this year.
And if you're legal to sell honey, both of these events you could bring honey to sell,
Or wax
or wax, or whatever
Point.
bee product.
May 17th?
Yes.
Yeah, and which is also the same day that we have one of our beginners courses up at Bonsville Mill, which I would normally be doing.
And you get a shirt.
Yes. Well, it's just we're outreach, but engagement. We engage the public, so that's why we have engagement on here. It's a wonderful polo shirt. It's sweat wicking. It's nice to eat. So get the shirt too.
Would we just show up at 9:30 and?
If you wanna register, you wanna sign up
first.
Yeah,
on the website and then show up at 9:30 and we'll have it. I will have set up the table early that morning and the tent. So it'll be ready for you, to show up. We'll also have, the education frames, and we'll also have some prints of, historical people in bee garb, and, the lady out there with her pots and pans hanging down a hive that was a waiting drawing.
If we do 2 events on the same day, do we have 2 tents?
You don't need a tent for the perennial event that's underneath the.
We do have 2 tents, right?
I do have a second tent,
Yeah.
Okay.
and I also have, a tablecloth for
The Malvern event, you still,
Okay.
it's in that.
Do we have observation hives for both?
I will bring an observation hive to the Malvern event. If somebody else has an observation hive to bring, George, I know you've got a couple of.
I
So
have one.
here's a plug, is George has made these single deep frame observation hives. So you pull a frame out of your hive, you drop it in, close it up, and off you go with it. Weighs what, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, as opposed to what I used to carry out would be like a nuke with an observation window above, and that sucker there were times it was 40 or 50 pounds. Trying to haul it out to a site was unpleasant.
Can I be not blunt for a second, or be blunt for a second? Can I please? Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir because we have 500 or 600 members and I have 40 people in the audience here. But tell me how I can get more people to help out to do this, honestly. Like, is it the website? Is it the messaging's not clear? Like, how do I do it? I'm open to feedback, and I don't mean to say this, but I'm saying it because we don't know what to do, honestly, at this point. So we're open to ideas. We got nice shirts, but
As we've said all along, anybody in this room knows more about beekeeping than Joe Q. Public.
The events are fun. I'm
But-
not gonna lie, they're
and I'm not meaning to be, but I'm want to hear ideas of how we can. What do we need to do what do we need to do?
I know I got an email about like the community engagement meeting. It was like 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I'm still at work at that point.
You don't
So,
have to go to the meeting.
no, I know, but I mean, like, that's part of the
That's part of the
issue.
challenge,
It's
yeah.
like timing,
Yeah.
things like that. And maybe making, I think if people are possibly looking at this and saying, well, I could be there from 9 to 11, but 9 to 1 is too much. And, I know we need the whole thing covered, but shorter shifts might get more people to be able to be there.
You could call a friend and say, hey, listen, I'll cover 2 hours of that shift and you cover the other 2 hours. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So
And by the way, the event starts at 10. I only put 9:30 for any setup.
Yeah.
Just
and other thought, I mean, because we're banging our head a little bit.
What these events are, what you're actually doing there.
There's 2 types of events. There's meet and greets. Anybody can do this. You're sitting behind a tent, you're in the tent, you're at a table. There's plenty of stuff in front of you to educate the people that are asking questions. You're talking about beekeeping. There's speaking engagements where we're getting in front of a room and we're showing slides, we're having conversations. That's a little bit more involved. I don't expect everybody to sign up for those right away. And there's some training involved, which I'm more than happy to provide. So the meet and greets, which are pretty much this one has a little bit of a history to it, but again, it's not that complicated. It's meet and greet. You're just going and talking about beekeeping and having a conversation with people there
as they come by.
as they come by. They're gonna get some questions. Oh, tell me about beekeeping. Oh, good. What's a queen? You're gonna get those questions. So, how's the queen work? How often does the hive dive and relive? I mean, the questions are all over the map, and it's for beginner beekeepers. If you've been doing it for a year or even half a year, you're going to know more than the majority of the public out there.
We've invested in the material. We have observation hive, we have frames, we have shirts, we have coloring books, we have. Anyways, so is it not clear? Is it? I don't know. I'm just stuck on this one a little bit because it's not the first time we've.
I don't know if I just didn't notice it, but for me, I was like, oh, I would do that. but it's next weekend and I have something going on next weekend. So I don't know if I just didn't see you guys talk about it earlier, but for me, I'm like, oh, it's too short notice.
That's fine.
So I don't know if that's part of it.
If you're on the site, just go to the calendar, look
Okay.
for events. We're pink, is our color.
And can look
And
at
I
things
think,
further
I
in
think the
advance.
website needs, the website refresh will hopefully help some of this, like make it more intuitive, like where to find this stuff, so
Okay.
you don't have, you can hit one button or it's clearer, so we know that there's a website issue
And if we're
behind
covered,
this.
if we have full coverage and you're like, I just wanna go anyway, please, by all means, show up. More people, the better.
Admittedly, I don't check the website really hardly ever, and that's not a fault of the website. I'm just, there's enough on my plate that I'm not going looking for things. I also don't always pay attention to email, so I say these things as like, these are my disclaimers here, but how, is there sort of a general time frame ahead of an event where an email might get sent?
We don't know. We're trying to get these organizations to get to us sooner. There'll be times where we get an email like a week before.
Oh, no. I got one last year from the French school in Westchester. Can you come today?
It's that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quick.
Well, that's what they answered no once.
Yeah.
Yes, and I took an observation hive and talked to about 60 or 70 kids. Great.
So, can I ask one question? If we were to change the volunteer program to activities program, like coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people were like, geez, I just want to be around people. And they were looking for activities to do. I think there's this connotation with volunteer that you have to work. But if we say these are activity opportunities, would it seem more enticing? That's what I thought, yeah. I really think if we change it to activities.
So, but how many people are typically at this? So I'm a
2 or 3.
newbie, so I would not feel comfortable, and the reason I'm sitting here, it's like, well, I could do something, but I don't want to be the one person there. Is it typically
Yeah,
We like to
2
have
or 3?
2 or 3 people.
Mhm.
Speaking is the only time where it's only one. But again, I'm not gonna throw you, if you're like, oh, I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not gonna put you out there. But again, I train people for that.
But I think I did one of these when I was brand new too, and it's so much fun. It was fun.
It is fun.
Can I sign up somewhere to be on a list where you, when you get them, you email?
Community engagement.
There is, it's out
Yes.
there? Okay.
Join. Any questions you have, you come and talk to me about it. And I understand, listen, we're all busy. Like, I'll even be happy if someone's like, look, I do 2 engagements, two events a year, I'm doing that. Great. Mark does the beer gardens at Sugartown all the time. I'm doing I do Kennett Square, the Kennett Square STEM event every year. So whatever, I always stick to certain events, and that's fine. You have your event and you give a contact. Like, well, I engage with the school and they want us there, and every year I'm gonna do that. Awesome.
So somewhere on our website, you can go sign up to get the
I
email.
love that. Somewhere on our website?
Yeah, no,
My contact
It's gonna get better, that's
It's
all I
gonna
can say.
get, it's gonna get better.
If there are some that are, every year kind of thing, if you can maybe separate it geography wise, because I just looked to see, for me to do Sugartown, it's an hour from my house.
Yeah,
right.
And that starts becoming,
I understand.
maybe
But
not.
for you, the Unionville Fair
Yeah,
would be
right.
Nice.
So maybe
Yeah.
somewhere in there, if there are things that that you do every year, say, in this part of the county, we have these 5 things, this part of the county, we have these 4 things,
Yeah.
so that allows me to.
We're trying to get ahead of it. It's just, it's not as organized as I'd like it to be, and we're still trying to work that out.
Not to be defensive, because that's not who I am, but I'm venting a little bit. Sorry, I'm preaching to the audience, but we did try this where we took the zip code of where the event was and emailed people who live within 5 or 10 miles
we did.
of that location, and we got
0.
So I'm not opposed to the idea, but this is an idea that we tried and we didn't get the response that I was hoping for. And again, we all own this, right? But I'm just, again, saying this because we get 40, 50 events speaking a year. We're trying to say yes, but
Can I tell you the most rewarding part of it? I work with kids a lot. I do scouts. I've got 5 kids. I do schools. I can't tell you the kind of enthusiasm for beekeeping. I can't tell you, even with adults, it is the most rewarding thing in the world. So when you start engaging people and educating them, they're thanking you a million times over because you gave them some knowledge about nature, about what's around us. And you're making them aware of what we have and what we offer. This is a great club. Not many like it. I looked across all the Northeast, all the different websites. We are very unique. And you should be proud of that. This is a great club. So we need to tell the public about it.
It's hard.
What we probably do is make sure they get it at the year list. Event that are going to be happening, like say January, February, March, and then each month, and again, to update it. Because then we can look in January and say, oh, March 5th, I can do it.
We try. The problem is again, we get emails like 2 weeks before the event.
But you're saying
Yeah,
you
we
have
do.
like 50 events, even if they're just generic.
Yeah.
And
We try.
No, we hear you, like
Mark
a
puts
reminder
a lot
is
of events
helpful.
on yeah.
You wanna show us where you find it now, Mark?
Yeah, if you go to the events calendar, you can see the ones in pink. If you change this and search for, I come down here and say community engagement and search. And so now you can see there were 3 that were on the calendar. If I go to the list format, I can go, actually I can do this and change it to future. And now this is everything that's on the calendar so far this year.
This one's a lot of fun. I really have a lot of fun at the beer garden. Music, food, bring your kids. I mean, seriously, it's a lot of fun. Go to that one. These community fairs are fun. Again, you'll have a good time.
Is there a map view?
You don't have that.
But no, thank you all for your thoughts on this, because
I appreciate it.
we're continuing to try to figure this out, honestly.
Just a comment, as somebody brand new to the club,
Absolutely.
I am really impressed with how dynamic this club is. You just seem to offer so many different things, so get the word out, right? You should be proud of what you're doing.
Thank you a lot.
Yeah.
It's the same 20 people, which is
No,
a challenge, which is a challenge with any volunteer organization. And all I'm standing up here is asking for some help.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. But thank you for
Yeah,
recognizing that.
it seems like a very worthwhile club, so.
Thank you.
What if you guys did something akin to your apprentice program, but it's more community outreach, where there's a buddy?
Oh, that's a
There's
good
help
idea.
with it, like buy down the fear of the unknown and the, I don't want to get in over my head, I don't want to drop the ball. Just you do a buddy thing, and then someone's like, okay, all right, I got help.
Yeah,
Hang
I'd
out,
be,
Damon or Mark.
Whatever. So next Friday, our meeting will be at Historic Sugartown. What time? Say 4 o'clock.
4:30.
4:30.
Yeah.
At Historic Sugartown. If you can't make it, there will be a Zoom link. I completely understand.
Yes.
Nobody likes more emails, but honestly, I don't go on the website unless something in an email or text or something drew me there. So I would suggest you do more non-website communications. I know you do a lot of it.
Emails that came back were interesting. Political emails. I kid you not. Asking me, why aren't you involved in politics? I'm like, did you sign up for a beekeeping group or a political group? I'm not kidding. So I will do emails, but the when I got back, it was like, who are you? Why are you contacting me? I'm like, what did I get myself into? I sent out an email.
Oh, you're gonna get some of that, but
It's really interesting.
I think it'd be a little bit better if you like overdid it rather than underdid it.
Okay, so don't worry about it.
It's
And have the title be like CCBA volunteer opportunity.
Right.
Something like that.
Activity opportunities.
Activity
Activity, do an activity
Fun
with Damon.
opportunities. Fun activities.
George not involved.
Damon.
When you send out the email, can you have all the emails start with CCBA? Because I got the email from the newsletter, and all that's all was newsletter team, and I'm like, do I open it or do I leave it alone?
Mine
It wasn't
doesn't
CCBA.
come from me, it comes from CCBA. So it'll say like, I forget what it says, it doesn't come directly from me. It comes from the website, it says like, community outreach events, I usually put like community outreach, or now I'm gonna put activity.
That's good feedback, that we should put CCBA
Yeah, that's right.
as the first.
But I think my I think I remember the last time I sent it was like CCBA community outreach. I always put that in the subjects.
Yeah, we have to manually enter that every email we send y'all, so
Yeah, it gets a little bit hectic.
we're trying.
All right,
Cool, no, I really appreciate it, thank you for allowing me to vent for 5 minutes and with the feedback back, 'cause
I got
we're
it.
looking to make it better.
I gave a quick talk to, or no, I opened up some beehives for 4 students at a small school. And these are the thank you notes I got back. And I thought were very cute, so I told them I'd share them. This Thursday, so it's very nice. So this Thursday at 3 p.m. on Guest Channel 29, Fox Station, one of our members, Paul, it starts with an N, complicated last name. Paul, is going to be talking about a mic product that he's developed.
3 p.m. Fox News,
Yeah.
Thursday. We funded his work many, many years ago. Yeah, we did. He got it long before we changed the grant program. He got a grant from us to do some of this work. So we were involved in whatever he's going to be presenting.
Are you talking channel 29 or
Yeah.